play?
It is about a woman who I play called Martha, who was a war correspondent.
For someone like Tilda Swinton, desire has never followed ordinary rules. She is not drawn to power, wealth, or traditional masculinity, and she has never hidden that fact. What fascinates Tilda Swinton goes far deeper than physical attraction. It is about minds that unsettle her, spirits that feel untamed, and people who exist outside society's carefully drawn lines. Over the years, through interviews, collaborations, and quiet admiration, Tilda has revealed a rare truth. Intimacy, for her, begins long before the bedroom. It starts with shared silence, radical imagination, and the courage to live truthfully. The people she feels closest to are not always lovers in the conventional sense, but figures who challenge her understanding of art, identity, and freedom. Tonight, we are not talking about gossip or scandal. We are exploring 6 individuals whose presence sparked something deeply personal in Tilda Swinton. Connections rooted in intellect, vulnerability, and the kind of attraction that only reveals itself with age and self-awareness. Number 1. David Bowie. To understand the kind of attraction that resonates with David Bowie, you have to abandon every traditional definition of desire. Bowie was never just a man, a musician, or a performer. He was an idea, a living challenge to identity itself. And for Tilda Swinton, that mattered more than anything physical ever could. Bowie embodied what Tilda has always represented on screen and off: freedom without apology. He rejected fixed gender roles decades before the conversation became mainstream, moving effortlessly between masculine, feminine, and something far beyond both. For Tilda, this was not rebellion for shock value. It was truth. Bowie didn't perform identity, he dissolved it. Their connection existed in glances, shared aesthetics, and mutual recognition. They understood each other instinctively, as if speaking the same private language. In Bowie, Tilda saw someone who refused to be confined by the body, the industry, or public expectation. Attraction, in this sense, was spiritual and intellectual, a desire to exist in the same emotional and creative space. What makes this bond especially meaningful to older audiences is its purity. There was no scandal, no need for confirmation. Bowie represented the ultimate freedom to be oneself, and that freedom, more than romance, is what Tilda Swinton has always gravitated toward. Number 2. Pedro Almodovar. If Bowie symbolized boundless identity, Pedro Almodovar represents understanding the rare ability to see beauty where others see strangeness. Almodovar's films celebrate emotional excess, unconventional desire, and characters who live at the margins of society. For Tilda Swinton, that worldview is not just attractive, it is essential. Pedro Almodovar does not judge his characters. He listens to them. He allows them to exist fully, flaws and all. That approach mirrors how Tilda herself navigates the world. She has never sought validation from Hollywood standards. Instead, she aligns herself with artists who honor emotional truth, even when it makes people uncomfortable. The attraction here is rooted in safety. Not the safety of predictability, but the safety of being fully seen. Almodovar creates spaces where vulnerability is not punished, but elevated. For Tilda, that kind of creative intimacy carries a powerful pull. It is the intimacy of shared values, where silence speaks as loudly as words. To audiences over 50, this connection feels deeply familiar. As life progresses, desire often shifts away from appearance and toward recognition. Being understood becomes more seductive than being admired. Almodovar is not a romantic fantasy. He is a collaborator of the soul, the kind of presence that allows someone like Tilda Swinton to lower her guard completely. Number 3. Timothée Chalamet. At first glance, the idea of attraction between generations may seem surprising, but with Timothée Chalamet, the dynamic is not romantic in the conventional sense. It is observational, curious, and deeply human. Timothée represents something rare in modern masculinity: softness without weakness. For Tilda Swinton, Timothée embodies a generation that is no longer afraid of sensitivity. He is emotionally open, physically unguarded, and uninterested in performing toughness for approval. That vulnerability is what draws attention, not desire rooted in possession, but fascination rooted in evolution. Tilda has often gravitated toward people who exist between definitions, and Timothy fits that space effortlessly. He is neither traditional leading man nor fragile outsider. He occupies a fluid space where emotion leads and identity follows. For someone like Tilda, who has spent her life dismantling labels, this is compelling. This connection speaks powerfully to mature audiences. It reflects a truth learned over time. Attraction does not always move forward, sometimes it looks back, observing what has changed in the world. Timothy is not someone Tilda would chase, but someone she recognizes as proof that progress is possible. That recognition carries its own quiet intimacy. In these first three figures, Bowie, Almodovar, and Chalamet, we see the foundation of Tilda Swinton's inner world. Desire, for her, is not about bodies. It is about freedom, understanding, and emotional courage. And as the story continues, that definition only becomes clearer. Number 4. Jim Jarmusch. With Jim Jarmusch, attraction takes the form of silence, the kind that feels intentional rather than empty. Jarmusch has always resisted spectacle. His cinema breathes in pauses, in spaces where nothing obvious happens, and yet everything meaningful unfolds. For Tilda Swinton, that restraint is magnetic. Their long-standing collaborations are not accidents of scheduling. They are acts of trust. Jarmusch understands that intimacy does not require explanation. He lets moments linger until they reveal their own truth. In that environment, Tilda thrives. She is not asked to perform charisma or dramatize feeling. She is allowed to be present. That permission, especially for someone who has spent decades under the gaze of audiences, carries profound allure. What draws Tilda to Jarmusch is his refusal to overstate. He does not decorate emotion. He waits for it. This patience creates a rare form of closeness, a mutual respect that feels almost private even when translated to screen. Their bond suggests that desire can exist without urgency, without demand, without the need to define itself. For viewers over 50, this resonates deeply. With age comes an appreciation for quiet companionship, the kind that doesn't interrupt your inner life, but walks beside it. Jarmusch represents that ideal, a man whose presence deepens the room without ever trying to dominate it. In his stillness, Tilda finds a mirror for her own evolving understanding of connection. Number 5. Ralph Fiennes. If Jarmusch embodies quiet freedom, Ralph Fiennes represents discipline and the tension that discipline creates. Fiennes is steeped in classical training, theatrical rigor, and emotional precision. Where Tilda often floats between forms, Ralph stands firmly within structure, and it is precisely this contrast that generates attraction. The dynamic here is not soft, it is electric. Two intelligent artists testing the limits of control and vulnerability. Fiennes brings intensity sharpened by restraint, while Tilda counters with fluidity and intuition. The result is a charged intellectual space where neither can remain passive. Attraction, in this context, is born from challenge. Tilda has never shied away from friction. She understands that meaningful connection sometimes emerges from opposition rather than comfort. Fiennes represents the man who questions, pushes, and demands focus. There is a seriousness to him that resists chaos, and that resistance becomes a point of fascination. For mature audiences, this kind of attraction feels honest. It acknowledges that desire is not always gentle. Sometimes it arises where two strong identities meet and refuse to yield. Yet there is respect beneath the tension. Fiennes is not overpowering. He is exacting. And Tilda, who values clarity as much as freedom, responds to that precision. This is not the attraction of ease. It is the attraction of sharp minds circling one another, aware of boundaries, yet compelled to approach. It speaks to a stage of life where connection is chosen consciously, not stumbled into. Number 6. The unnamed presence. The final figure has no public identity, and that absence is the point. For Tilda Swinton, the most intimate attraction may not belong to a collaborator, an icon, or a fellow artist at all. It may belong to someone entirely outside the machinery of fame, someone unseen. Tilda has spoken often about her skepticism toward traditional romantic narratives. She questions ownership, performance, and expectation. In that worldview, the most meaningful closeness does not require an audience. The unnamed presence represents a person who meets her away from definitions beyond gender roles, beyond status, beyond storytelling. This figure is not powerful, not celebrated, not required to be exceptional in public ways. What matters is depth, honesty, and the courage to exist quietly. For someone who has lived under scrutiny, this kind of companionship offers refuge. Attraction here is not sparked by novelty, but by peace. Older audiences understand this instinctively. As life unfolds, desire often migrates toward simplicity, toward someone who does not compete with your past or demand your future. The unnamed presence symbolizes that choice, the decision to prioritize emotional safety over intensity, privacy over validation. In many ways, this final figure completes the story. After icons, collaborators, and contrasts, what remains is the human need to rest, to share space without explanation, to sleep beside someone without having to be anything other than yourself. In the end, this story was never about provocation or shock. It was about understanding how Tilda Swinton defines intimacy on her own terms. Through these 6 figures, we don't see a list of desires, but a map of a life lived consciously, where attraction evolves from curiosity to challenge, and finally, to quiet clarity. What makes Tilda Swinton so compelling to audiences over 50 is that her journey feels earned. She does not chase passion for its noise, nor does she fear solitude. Instead, she chooses connection that respects individuality, silence, and truth. In a world obsessed with labels and headlines, her story reminds us that the deepest forms of closeness are often invisible to the public eye. Perhaps that is why so many people find themselves reflected in her choices. With time, desire becomes less about fantasy and more about recognition of who we are and what we no longer need to prove. If this story resonated with you, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Which connection surprised you most? And do you believe attraction becomes clearer or quieter with age? Stay with us for more thoughtful journeys into the private worlds of extraordinary figures.